Welcome to the Medium in the Middle podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, the medium in the middle. This podcast is going to walk you through my journey into mediumship and how I came to realize that I could communicate with souls that have passed over. My adventure started just over a year ago when unusual situations started happening to me. It wasn't until I really started to pay attention to them that it all started to come together. I wrote down everything that I was experiencing this past year in a little black book, and this podcast is going to be a recap of all of those memories leading up to where I am today in my mediumship journey. I will be releasing new episodes every Tuesday, and I recommend listening to the podcast in order, starting with episode 1, as my story will unfold more week by week. If you would like to stay connected with me, follow me on Instagram at mediuminthemiddle. Hello and welcome to episode 5. In this episode, I'm going to take a pause from telling you the stories that have been happening to just answer some of your questions. By this point, you've heard a few stories. We kind of know how it works. So I want to explain all of the common questions that I was getting at this time and that I still get to this day when I do tell one or two of these stories, trying to explain to people how I realized I became a medium. So I asked you for your questions on Instagram, and I'm going to jump right in by answering those questions for you. I've divided the questions into 2 portions, so I'm first going to answer all the questions about Reiki, and then I'm going to answer all the questions specific to mediumship. So the first question that I get the most often is, what is Reiki? And that is a very valid question. Whenever people do ask me what is Reiki, they're usually a little bit embarrassed and they don't want to ask the question, but I didn't know what Reiki was before I took my first course, so I definitely don't expect anyone else to know what it is either. So I want to take this time to just explain it fully, and I actually have pulled out my paperwork that I got from my first course just to explain it, because I would like to do a full explanation of it now, just so that everyone's really clear on what it is. So Reiki supports the body's natural ability to heal itself. It's a Japanese technique for stress reduction and relaxation, and is the ancient art of the laying of the hands. It promotes healing on all levels: mind, body, emotional, and spiritual. It's composed of 2 words, so Rei means God's wisdom or higher power, and Ki, which is the life force energy. So Reiki is a spiritual, guided life force energy. So what Reiki does is it helps increase and balance your energy so that illness can be avoided. If you're having any pain in your body, it helps with any pain in your body by moving that energy out. So I like to say that it kind of takes away anything that you no longer need. I had someone ask me, does everyone have energy? And the answer is absolutely yes. Every one of us has energy. Reiki is on the basis that everything is energy. So what are the main effects of Reiki? It helps to balance your energy. It helps to increase creativity. It helps to release emotions, even emotions that you've been holding on for years. Like if you come for a session with me and your first session is at 50, I might take you back to something that happened when you were 12 because you're still holding on to it. And I think we can all think of something that's happened in the past that we are still holding on to. And it's like a weight on your body. It's heavy. So Reiki helps to release those things that we don't need to be carrying around with us. It helps to relieve stress. It works on amplifying your energy. It helps in healing, and it helps to increase awareness. Apart from all these things that Reiki helps with, I also love helping people who have a hard time sleeping. I find that Reiki is one of those things. If I can calm your mind, I can help you sleep at night. So I've had numerous people tell me, I haven't had a good sleep in weeks after my session. I slept like a baby. I haven't had a good sleep in years after my session. I slept like a baby. Steph, I haven't had a full night's sleep in 20 years after your session. I slept like a baby. It just does something to your brain that fully relaxes you and gets rid of what you no longer need. I always say you'll leave the session feeling 1,000 pounds lighter, depending on what you're carrying around. So I often get asked how I got into Reiki. This was actually an interesting story. I used to work for Lululemon, and I was in charge of community, and I would have this one woman who is now my friend. She would come in and she would sell mala beads and different jewelry in the store. So I would talk to her, but usually she was in on a Saturday, so I was busy. And just through our conversations, she told me that she was a Reiki master. And every time she came into the store, I'd always want to know more about what a Reiki master was. What is Reiki? What does that mean? And we never really had the chance to fully talk about it because it was always on a busy day. She was busy selling, I was busy working. So there was a big yoga conference in the Toronto area, so I looked up Reiki and I saw that they were hosting a course. So I was looking up the courses and I was just interested. I had never had a treatment before. I really had no idea what it was. I just knew that it was this cool word and I was interested in it. And I wanted to know why she was a Reiki master and I wanted to be a Reiki master. So then I ended up finding a course near my house. I didn't end up doing the one in Toronto. And it just happened to be on a weekend that I was off. It just happened to be 20 minutes from my house. So it kind of all was meant to be. It just happened to be 1/3 of the price of the one in Toronto. So I went, and before we started, we all went around in a circle and kind of talked about our experience with Reiki, and I was the first to go, and I was a little embarrassed, but I kind of said, I've never done Reiki. I've never had Reiki done to me. I've never had a session. I don't know what it is. I just know that I'm interested in it and drawn to it, and that's why I'm here today. And actually, there was a few of us in the course that had the same answer. So I guess what I've also learned through Reiki is that you're called to it for a reason. So there was a reason why the word Reiki interested me. There was a reason why I asked questions. There was a reason why when I looked it up, there just happened to be a course in the next town on a weekend that I had off when I never had weekends off. Like it just all lined up for a reason. And I really believe that. The next question that I get asked often about Reiki is, what is a Reiki session and what do you do in it? Also a very valid question. So I like to say that my sessions are kind of structured, but they do vary based on each person. So they've evolved over time, but usually I like to start with your head and I move my way down through your chakras, ending at your feet. But while I'm opening up kind of your energy body so that I can work in it, I usually will find something that needs the most work. So you can come to me and say that your shoulder hurts and you have shoulder pain, but while I'm working on your shoulder, I might find that actually your relationship with your dad is bothering your heart more, and that's what I need to work on. So I lay my hands in different positions on your head, on your shoulders, on your stomach, knees, ankles, elbows, wrists. I move around my hands and I find where the pain is. So often the client on the bed will experience heat wherever my hands are. Sometimes they'll experience a tingling sensation. Some people will feel the energy moving out of their limbs. So a common to feel the energy moving out of your hands or your feet or your crown on top of your head. During my sessions, I do like to use crystals to help amplify the healing. So I put a crystal on each of your 7 chakras, and each of the crystal is specific to that chakra. So it just helps to pull out any energy that you don't need. The crystals that I use are probably half a pound, but depending on where they are in your body, I've had them leave marks on people. And that's, again, another sign of how I know, did this small little crystal leave a mark like it was 20 pounds on your heart? It's because there was something on your heart. I can take that crystal off, no problem. You didn't really need it there. If it's stuck to your body from sweat or from whatever, there was a reason that crystal needed to be there. So my sessions have evolved now where I try to be silent for the first 30 minutes, and it's almost my scan of the body. I'm moving through, kind of checking each chakra, trying to find where you need the energy the most. And then the second half is I'm still working, but I'm explaining to you what's going on in your energy body. I'm explaining to you what I feel in your heart, what I feel in your gut, what's going on with the pain in your knee, what's been bothering you, what have you been dreaming about, just asking you different questions, and together we kind of work through what's going on in your energy. At the end of the session, I always clear you with sage. I like to add Palo Santo just to add some positive energy and to wake you back up. And then I like to add a sound bath as well. In my mind, it kind of disperses all the energy that I just got rid of out of the room. So when you sit up, you're not sitting in that stagnant energy. And then we talk about it afterwards. If you want to share anything that you didn't share during the session, we can talk about it. If you don't want to say anything, you don't have to say anything. I usually give you a glass of water, and it usually feels like you just had a massage. So I always say energy work is the same as if I was physically massaging your muscles. It is still a lot of work, even though it might not seem like it to you. I recommend having a few hours off after the session so you can chill. I usually give you a little something to do, like you need to go put your feet in the grass in the park. You need to go and sit in a tub, something revolving your energy. And you'll feel very calm, very zen. You'll have a great night's sleep. And I always recommend drinking a lot of water throughout the day. So yeah, that is what a Reiki session is like with me specifically. I think that with other people it is going to be different, but that's what I do. The last energy question that I get the most often is, does everyone need energy work? And I have a tough time answering this question because, of course, I want to scream yes. Energy work is amazing for anyone, but I think that you have to be open and ready for it. So people are always like, Steph, I want to come for a session with you. And I was like, okay, great. And if they tell it to me a few times, I always tell them when the time is right and when you need it the most, you'll book the session and it'll work for your schedule and everything will all fit in. You'll know when you need it. It's another thing people say, how often should I come back? You'll know when you need it. It's not one of those things you need to come every month or you need to come every week. You'll know when you're starting to feel off again and when you need to be rebalanced. So yes, I think that everyone does need energy work, but I think you need to be at a state where you're ready for it, you're open for it, and you're ready to do the work. Because I'm going to bring up things or I'm going to work on things that you essentially are going to have to deal with. It's not just the pain in your shoulder that's going to go away. It's okay. What are you going to let go from your past that you're holding on to? What's that one thing that keeps running through your mind that you need to stop so that you can stop having those headaches and sleep at night? What's that one relationship that you have to heal so that you're not constantly thinking about it and you have that pit in your stomach where you're like, oh, I know I have to do this. I'm going to tell you what you have to do, something that you already know you have to do, but then in order for you to fully release that energy, you're going to have to go and do it. So I feel like people need to be ready for that. I can't just force someone to come for an energy healing and then they come and get the full experience. I think you need to be ready, and you'll know when you're ready. You'll just have this feeling in your gut. You'll be like, yeah, now's the time. Okay, so now I'm going to move into my most frequently asked questions about mediumship. So probably the number one question that I get asked is, how did my family and friends react when I told them? And I am going to do a full episode about when I did tell my family, because that was a whole experience. But it's very interesting when I have to tell family and friends. At first, I didn't want to tell anyone, and then I started to tell everyone. And then I realized I didn't have to tell everyone, but it was almost like the secret that you want to blurt out. But people react fairly normally. I was quite surprised. It's like, hey, what's new? And I'm like, oh, I think I can talk to dead people. And they're like, oh, okay. What does that mean? I don't really know, but I'm figuring it out. It's really weird, and this has been happening, and you get into it. And some people want to know more. Some people are just like, oh, okay, cool. But it's weirdly normal how people react. I haven't had anyone react negatively. I haven't had anyone say, I don't believe you. Some people have said, I don't believe in that stuff, but if you believe it, kind of good for you, but I haven't had anyone really attack me for it or anything. So the response has been surprisingly fine. The next question I get often is, how did I realize what was happening? Or how did I figure out that souls were trying to communicate with me? How did I realize this was mediumship? And as you can tell from the first 4 episodes so far, I didn't really realize what was happening. It was kind of happening on a fluke. So what Lois suggested to me was to start writing everything down for energy, everything that I was experiencing in my Reiki sessions. So I just started to write everything down like it was a Reiki session, but for when the souls came through. So I started to write down all these stories in that little black book, which is the rendition of what this podcast is about. But it took me a while to kind of put the pieces together, especially with all the little things that were happening. But I started to write everything down. Even if I thought it was insignificant, I would write it down. If I heard a noise, I would write it down. If something ran into my window, I would write it down. If all of a sudden I knew about a man named George with 3 kids, I would write it down. And I just started to research and look up things on the internet and read books and try to figure out what this all meant. And slowly, but surely, all the pieces of the puzzle started to come together. The next question I get is, how does it work? How do you get the messages? And this is a good question because it took me a really long time to know the answer to this question. So there's different types of mediums. There's clairvoyance and clairaudience, which means you see or you hear. I just know. So I can tell you what the person looks like, and to describe it best, it's almost like a shadow. So if they had long hair and it was dark, I could tell you they had long, dark hair. If it was short hair and light, I could tell you they had short, light hair. If they had a very distinct jaw, if they were really tall or really short, I can give you those details, but I couldn't tell you their eye color kind of thing. So I physically don't see them like a real person. It's more in my mind. So if you close your eyes right now and think about what your mom looks like, you can think about what your mom looks like, you see her in your mind. It's just like that. Or it's almost like when you see a picture and I close my eyes and I can remember what the picture looks like so I can describe the picture to you. That's how I describe what the soul looks like because they show up to me in that way. And then the easiest way to describe it is like a movie. So a little movie or a daydream plays out in my mind and then I just start to tell you the information that I have. So if I was just driving my car listening to the radio and then all of a sudden I'm thinking about a male who was 17 who died in a car crash. The car was red. There was 3 people in the car. His name started with a G. And the information goes on and on and on. I'm starting to realize that that's not a random thought, that all of those little pieces of information are someone trying to tell me something. So I've learned over time to pay attention to that information. I wouldn't all of a sudden be thinking about a 65-year-old who was golfing in a red polo on a cliff when I'm in yoga class. Okay, that means that someone around me has someone that passed away with that information. Wait for that episode. So those are the ways that it comes. It's just all of a sudden I know. And then I have learned to just say the information. So the next question I got is, has a dead person ever come through while at work and for someone that you didn't know? The answer for this is yes. I am going to do an episode on this. While I was learning what was happening to me, I was also learning how to set boundaries. I'm going to fully talk about this in the next episode. But one of my boundaries, my strictest, hardest boundary that I try not to break ever, is no messages at work. So there's definitely been a few exceptions to this rule, and I'll talk about them in the next episode. But the one that I really try to follow is when I'm at work, and even when people come up to me and they want something, I'm like, not at work. I just can't open up the floodgates while I'm working. But the answer is yes, and I will talk about that it needs a full episode for that experience. So this is kind of similar to the last question, but if you knew 100% that a spirit was trying to connect with a random at a store, would you go up to them? And this is another one of my gray areas because my insides are screaming, no, don't do it. You can't walk up to a stranger. But have I done it? Yes. It's just one of those things. If I'm walking past you in a grocery store and then I pass you 3 more times in separate aisles, on the last time I'm going to tell you. Again, there's an episode for this as well. But if someone really wants to get a message across, I will deliver it. I'm a little bit of a sucker for that. The next question was a question that I really liked, and it got me thinking. The question was, where do I plan to take my mediumship skills in the future? And I'm definitely in the infancy of any type of skill. So this is happening randomly. I can control it more, so it does happen in almost every Reiki session. I would say 95% of my Reiki sessions, someone comes through. But I would like to learn how to control it better. I would like to have medium-specific sessions. So you could either book in for a mediumship session or you could book in for an energy healing session. I would like to keep the two separate because right now they're mixing and it makes a lot for one session. I would love to do group readings because I find that you can give so many more messages so much more quickly and reach more people with a group. And I would just really like to learn to dial it in more. So I think there's so much growth. As I mentioned, I'm only in year 1, and this is, I'm sure, going to be a lifelong journey. I just am really looking forward to learning more. So I just recently got a mentor who I'm really excited to be working with, and I'm excited to kind of ask all of the questions that someone who has already gone through this can help me, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel. And it's very hard to find someone who you can connect with and trust, especially someone who's authentic and who is very similar to me. I kind of give the messages straight up, no fluff, no BS, and I need someone who isn't too woohoo. And I found her, so I'm excited to start my mentorship program. So this was another question that I really liked. Do you have any fears about doing a reading, and what or who may come through? So I'm not ever worried about who will come through, because usually it's a loved one that you need to talk to. Even if it's a dad that you didn't talk to for 20 years, he has something that he needs to tell you so you both can have peace. What they have to say, I've learned to ask people if I can have no filter, because I don't know what they're going to say and I don't know what's going to come up. And the only fear that I ever have is the fear of being wrong, or the fear of saying something dumb, or when I say that the person is wearing a red shirt and you're like, nope, they didn't even own a red shirt. And I'm like, nope, they're wearing a red shirt and they're really telling me they're wearing this red shirt. And there's always this weird little in-between phase until when it clicks. And when I'm telling the client something over and over and over again, sometimes I feel kind of awkward in those stages, but my biggest fear is of being wrong or the message just not landing at all. And that's only happened a few times. And for the few times that it did happen, I think like 2 of the 3 times the person has messaged me after being like, oh my gosh, I know who that person was, or, oh, the red shirt, yes. So it usually all comes full circle, but there's still so much fear in launching this podcast and telling people what I do, in working with new people and having to kind of prove yourself in my sessions. Everything is fear-based, and I think that's what holds us back in life. But I'm learning how to move through that fear and just like, I need to take this fear and put it aside, because it can't be what stops me for my whole life. The next question that I get often is, have any of your family members come through? So any of my personal family members come through. I have had a few, but they've always had messages for other people. So no one's ever had a message for me. They're usually for someone else. Actually, it's happened 3 times, I think. My grandpa came through and had a message for my grandma. My grandma came on the day of my grandpa's funeral, and she had a message for one of her daughters. And then I had an aunt come with a message for my mom. Again, the full stories of all these will be in future episodes, but it has happened, but no one's ever talked directly to me. It's usually for someone around me. This next one was a good question, so shout out to the person who put this one in. You know who you are. Was moving back to Banff, did it have anything to do with what was happening to you spiritually? So I talked about this a little bit in the last episode, but I did recently move across the country, so I pretty much left my entire life in Ontario, left everything. I left Joe, I left my house, I left my jobs, I left everything, and I moved back to Banff where I had lived previously. And it was 1000% everything to do with what was happening to me. There was just some strong pull that I knew I needed to come back here. I've never known anything so clear than that I needed to come back to Banff. And I always knew that I loved Banff and I loved the time that I lived here before, but this time it was like, nope, you need to go, and we're going to line up everything for you to go, and we're going to put these challenges in your way for you to go, but you're going to learn this and this and this. And I'm still learning why I need to be here, but it's become very clear with things that have happened. But I knew I needed to move to Banff because I needed to meet people. There's certain people I needed to meet, and I've met, I think, almost all of them of who I needed to meet and who needs to be in my life. There's lessons that I need to learn, and I've learned a whole hell of a lot of lessons since moving here in November. And there are things I need to do and accomplish when I'm here. So I know that there was a much bigger driving force of why I need to be here. And I've had many, many people and other energy workers tell me, it is so good that you had the strength to come back because you need to be here. And I just know I do. I need to be in this energy. I need to be in this environment. I need to be in the mountains. So yes, moving back to Banff was something that everyone was like, what are you doing? Why are you leaving? But the only answer I had was, I know I need to go. And I just feel so strongly that I need to go. Okay, so there's 3 more questions that I'd love to get in here, but this is getting pretty long. So the next question that I'd like to cover is, do I ever get nervous to sleep at night about someone communicating with you? The easy answer is no, but when I first started and I learned about boundaries, I was changing the way I did the boundaries. So at first it was, only communicate with me when in my dreams. Then my dreams got wild. So it was like, stop communicating with me in my dreams. Only communicate with me when I'm in the shower. Okay, stop communicating with me when I'm in the shower. So now my kind of general boundary is communicate with me when you have a message for someone. But when I'm falling asleep, I'm not afraid or anything. That in between when I'm drifting into sleep, it's kind of when all my barriers and walls are down. I usually get a lot of messages at that time. So the amount of times that I've kind of woken up and have to write something down on my phone or write something down on a piece of paper because, again, it's just that sense of knowing. When I'm falling asleep, I wouldn't all of a sudden be thinking about a tall man with dark skin who always rides bikes, whose name is this, whose friend is that. Like, it's like, okay, this is someone who has a message. I need to write down all this information because I'm going to find this person in the future, and I'm not going to remember everything they're telling me now. This state is similar to the state that I'm in when I'm driving. So when I'm driving, listening to the music, you're not thinking about anything. I'm just paying attention to the road. I very, very often will get messages when I'm driving. And I don't drive very often now because I live in a small town. But the amount of times that I've called someone and been like, hey, do you know someone who's this old who would have died this way? They would have died this many years ago. Their hair's like this and their name is this. And it's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, why? What were you doing? I was just in my car. And so I do try to, if I'm driving, I try to call the person because I usually have an idea of who it's for. Or if I'm about to fall asleep, I write it down because I'm not going to message someone at 1 a.m. I'll message them the next day. So another big question that I get asked often is how I deal with critics or non-believers. And I haven't run into a lot of them, at least no one that said it to my face, but it doesn't really bother me. You don't have to believe me. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I don't really care. If you accept the message or you don't accept the message, again, I don't really care. It doesn't bother me. The message is for you. So whether you're ready to hear it or not, that's up to you. And I think that spirits are good with knowing who's ready for the messages or not. Sometimes people will really want to talk to someone and I'll just be like, it's not time. Like, you're not ready to hear what they have to say. So far I haven't really had anything negative happened, but it doesn't hurt my feelings if you don't believe me. If you're my friend and you don't believe me, I don't really care. And why would I? The message either lands or it doesn't. And it's for you. It's not for me. I'm not doing this out of ego and I'm not doing this for some fake reason. And I wouldn't be doing this for some fake reason. This is crazy. Why I would make this up and put myself through this, because it is a difficult thing to kind of explain to people and you are putting yourself out there. But yeah, if you don't believe me, you don't believe me. And if you believe me, great, believe me. But it doesn't bother me either way. Okay, and the last question that I'm going to do for this series of question and answer is, how do I feel after a spirit has contacted me? Do I feel tired, energized, drained? Another great question. So in the beginning, especially the episodes that you've seen so far, was reacting very emotionally. So if the person was crying, I was crying. If they felt like they were having a heart attack, I felt like I was having a heart attack. If they had Parkinson's, I was physically shaking. And it was a lot of tears because, of course, the souls are sad. They miss you. They've been apart from you. They've missed your life. There's usually a lot of tears involved. So definitely at the beginning, I was crying a lot, or I was physically affected a lot, and I was becoming very drained. So especially after the Maria story, I slept like a baby. I was out. But I've learned over the years and through reading a lot that being emotional isn't helpful to the person who's receiving the reading. So me crying isn't nice for the person who I'm talking to. So now I'll start to cry, but I have the strength, I guess you could say, to stop myself from crying and recognizing, okay, this soul is sad. Or if they want to tell me that they died from a heart attack, they only have to let me feel the pain for a little bit instead of the whole session. So when I burp at the end, I feel back to normal. I feel fully fine, like the burp really is the light switch going off. Everything leaves, everything's done. And when I do Reiki sessions, because the energy is flowing through me to get to you, I'm also getting healed. So usually after a session, I feel great. Again, during the session, I might feel a little drained, or I might feel your shoulder pain, or I might feel the heartache that you felt, or my stomach might be tight. But I do still do little burps while I'm working, and those are just energy releases from your body. But once I'm done and I clear, and I'm also clearing myself as much as I'm clearing you, I feel great. I always feel wonderful. I don't feel drained. But it's something that I can't do very much of. So even when I do my sessions, I open it up to 3 people a day. And that's 3 75-minute sessions, and that's enough. Like, I don't think I could maybe squeeze in 4, but no more than 4 people. Even when kind of back-to-back readings, I wouldn't be able to do very much more than that. So it's not something that I can do for unlimited, because it does take a lot of my energy. But it's not that draining. It's more rewarding, and you feel really nice after. Okay, so I'm going to end the question and answer session here. That was so fun. Thank you for your questions, and I do get a lot of the same questions, so I hope this kind of answers all of the things that have been running through your mind up until this point. As the series goes on, if you have more questions, I can always do another question and answer in the future once we have some more episodes and some more information. For the next episode, I'm going to be taking you back to before episode 1 and explaining everything that happened to me before that first big experience. So just giving you more context into what was happening before the first story with Joe's uncle. And then after that, we're going to keep going with everything that has happened ever since. So thank you for listening again. I hope you found this episode informative and helpful, and I hope it answered all your burning questions. And until next week, thank you for listening. My name is Stephanie, and I am the medium in the middle.